Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Fayette County School Corporation Board of School Trustees Business Meeting. It's Tuesday, June 11, 2024. We're here at the admin building. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Superintendent does about fell.
Okay, I think we are beginning with a presentation by Chartwells.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We just had a few things to go over, kind of some highlights of some programs we did this school year. Everyone has a newsletter that we sent to Cindy, and she was so gracious to print out for us. So Global Eats is something we featured at our high school. So we have a student choice line at the high school, and we featured this on the high school student choice line. And it kind of gives you an overview of the concepts that's available for the kids. We did this 1 week at a time. So China was one of the cuisines we featured. Every cuisine that we do has a celebrity chef that has written the recipes for Chartwells. So Jet Tila, I don't know if you watch Food Network, he's on there quite a bit, especially on a lot of the competition shows. He did recipes for China, India. We had someone do recipes for that. She was also on the next Food Network star, and Ashley's going to bring around some recipes that were featured that we gave the kids. The recipe card for that is on the second page of your newsletter. And then we did Italy and we did Mexico. So we kind of featured those. Reception was a little bit hit and miss. I think the Indian cuisine was not really their favorite. I think we were doing like 20 to 30 a day on that. But of course at the high school, there's multiple lines for them to eat from. So a lot of those kids eat the nacho line sono every day. So, or they have pizza every day. So they have other options, but we are trying to expose them to different foods. And so that is one of the recipes that was featured. We just wanted to give you guys a little sample of that. We will do Global Eats again next year at the high school, but they have also added the Caribbean and Korean cuisine to the sampling of that. So it'll be a little bit more extensive next year. We also feature every year Discovery Kitchen. This will be our first year. We have an old picture obviously on here, that's Chef Cam. We have a new chef this year, and we'll introduce her. So Ashley Parker is our new chef for the district. And so her picture will be in there here pretty soon. But starting in September, we'll have Discovery Kitchen out at all the schools once a month, and then Smoothie Bite will be at the schools once a month also. So Ashley, you want to get up and say a few things, give them a little bit of insight on what you've done?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm new to Chartwells as of the end of February this year. I come to you from the Indiana State Fairgrounds. I was in charge of all the catering there for the past 2 years. Before that, I worked for the Pacers at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. And then many moves before that, I graduated from culinary school and worked for Disney Resorts in Florida. So I've had a lot of experience. This is my first time in K-12, but I'm really excited. I think we can really make a difference.
And she's pretty local, so she lives in Greenfield right now, but she grew up in Wilkinson, went to Eastern Hancock. And I mean, she's been a really good fit so far with the culture and with the students.
And I want to thank Ashley for always, I had to check with my neighbor here and realized you thought of me when you did not give me chicken.
Chickpeas.
I really appreciate that. Very thoughtful, knew that I didn't eat meat from the retirement dinner, which you made a fabulous meal there for me as well as everybody else that was there. But thank you for your thoughtfulness, I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and it goes right along with the cuisine too.
It really does, yeah.
And that's one thing she really does focus on is allergens. I've never had a chef, so we've had Charlie, we've had Cam, and now we have Ashley. And I've never had a chef that's been very focused on allergies, even with caterings and then also with our students. So I think that's great. So she's very focused on making sure that we accommodate and that the kids have what they need. So.
Because there's nothing worse than going somewhere and not having anything to eat for you. So I hope that we can always accommodate everybody and whatever their dietary restrictions might be.
This is delicious, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I love Indian food.
Really
This is
good.
delicious.
Thank you so much.
What is it again?
It's tikka masala. and brown rice
This is delicious.
with a yogurt sauce on top.
So that was one of the recipes that the students had this year at the high school. We actually pulled it straight from our menu, and wanted to make sure you guys could sample it so you could see what a recipe was like that we fed the kids this year.
How did the kids respond to it?
That's the week. The Indian cuisine was not huge, so probably about 20 to 30 we averaged a day that ate off of that line. There's a lot of the kids that eat off the same lines every single day. But we did do samples on some of the days for the line, but the Indian cuisine was probably our lowest participation.
Which did they like the best?
The Mexican always goes the best, and Italian.
Yeah.
So, and those are the two, they're comfortable with them. So, in Chinese, we have egg rolls every day. So you always get participation with egg rolls. So, but the Indian was definitely the lowest.
Well, we enjoyed it.
Jeremy says it's good, so that's.
Yeah, there's nothing left.
We'll go see them there, look at.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, looking at the agenda, I would like to seek a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
I'll give the motion.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now time for public comments on agenda items. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from the regular business meeting of 5/14/24 and the executive meetings of 5/14/24, 5/20/24, 5/22/24, 5/29/24, and 5/31/24. You wonder if we've seen each other just a little bit in the last month.
Just a little.
Yeah. Personnel report, retirements, resignation, leaves of absence, etc., and the approval of the May 2024 claims 67976 to 68183. And I'd like to seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so moved.
Thanks, Ann. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Ryan. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to action items. Personnel report, Mr. Harris.
The first one, you should have a revised personnel report, and I'll read through the items on there. Recommendations for employment administrative staff, recommending Whitney Gilman as assistant principal at Connersville High School. Certified staff, Kylie Pitcher as Spanish teacher at the high school and the middle school. Mia Nickel as journalism teacher at Connersville High School. And Lisa Rose as the interpersonal relations teacher at the middle school. Under classified staff, Tiffany Ailes, media specialist at Fayette Central. Lily Cowan as the Head Start Nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan Preschool. And Miranda Wright as the Head Start Nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan Preschool. Extracurricular staff, Matthew Boatman as the boys cross country coach. And Chelsea Wilson as 9th grade volleyball coach. Some other things also on there is the summer school recommendations for 23-24, which you have as attachment A. Recommendation for approval of administrator contract extensions and addendums. That is attachment B. And just a reminder, we've done nothing with salaries at this time. Also a recommendation to raise the HSA single board contribution to $3,500 annually to match the current annual deductible. This would be retroactive to January 1st of this year. And the last one, recommendation for retraction of the retirement for Cindy Lynch.
Well, first, I will seek a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Jeremy. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ryan. Any discussion? I have some discussion. I think Whitney's here, if everybody wants to meet Whitney. Oh, well, okay, well, I guess I'm supposed to approve it first. But the other thing I wanted to say, okay, good gracious, because I want to say something about Cindy. What's up?
Okay. You're the board president.
And you're leaving, so. So grateful to see Cindy's name on there as back with us for at least this. You know what they say about nurses and doctors and who really runs the show?
Cindy.
Cindy runs the show.
And we own it.
Yeah. Okay, now we get to vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Welcome, Whitney Gilman, to our school corporation.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will not be giving another speech for Cindy, though, at her next retirement. That was all
You
I
already
had.
gave-
I
that's all
know,
you
that's
had.
all I had.
Well, you can come back.
Oh, so,
We'll let you come back. Okay, investment of school corporation funds, Mr. Harris.
This is one we bring in June of every year, but there's a proposed resolution which allows the school district to bank outside of Fayette County, submit quotes for public fund certificates of deposit, and I need approval of that, and just as a little sidelight, just happens to be the timing. Tomorrow, we're soliciting quotes for 15, 18, and 24-month CD. So we'll see where the rates come in tomorrow, but requesting approval for resolution 2024-3.
Okay. I'd like to see a motion to approve the investment for the school corporation funds.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lori. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the Head Start COLA grant. Ms. Cameron.
The application narrative for the COLA grant was included in the board packet this evening. COLA stands for the cost of living allowance, so Fayette County Head Start is seeking permission to apply for COLA funds in the amount of $33,047. And these funds will strictly be used for increases in salaries and fringe benefits. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm assuming this is just, again, one of the things you just have to
Yes.
do in a certain
Yes.
timeline. Okay. All right, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the Head Start COLA grant.
I so moved.
Thanks, Ann. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Curriculum revision and textbook adoption, Ms. Corsaro.
Okay, last year, in line with the science adoption, we adopted science materials, and then the state went and revised some of the science standards as well as some of the related art standards. So we just need to go back and update some of our curriculum to make sure that we're in line with the new standards and the revisions. So you can see that the related arts and science materials are posted on the Google Drive if you care to go and view those. But I'm just asking for permission to update the current science curriculum based on the revised standards.
Just a question. So
Absolutely.
if they're revised standards, are they small revisions like we see with policies and things?
That part of Indiana's goal was to reduce the number of standards that were required to be taught to each student. And in that process, some of the standards were actually put together. Some of them were eliminated, some of them moved grade levels. So we just have to go back and fix our curriculum to make sure we're aligned to those.
Okay. All right. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the curriculum revision and textbook adoption.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Brian. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And the second reading and approval of the policies, 5.20 student attendance, academic engagement, 5.21 truancy, 5.26 student discipline, 5.32, I'm not going to read this the second time around, extracurricular activity code, CMS, CHS, and 5.33 extracurricular drug test. Mr. Collins.
okay, I'm gonna let Kim go over the.
Right. Last month, I gave to you a couple of them that we had to revise. A lot of it was just updating language. Some of it was new legislation. So I reported to you on 5.20 the attendance and the student engagement. The biggest piece there was just that we had to accommodate for the virtual learning of those of our kiddos that are using Edgenuity or any kind of online platform. The state requires us as a board to have policy that supports that. So that's the only addition of that one. The second one was just truancy. We added that a habitual truant will not be allowed to participate in extracurricular activities. That was just one addition to that one. And then I had the student discipline code, and we really just updated a lot of the language. made sure that we were in line with all the new legislation. So, and also in comparison, like as you see next, we're gonna go to our student handbooks. We just wanted to make sure everything was in line, and as we were doing that, it just was easier to rewrite that entire policy instead of just crossing things out. So that's why it looks so long. The other ones, I think, Scott, you had?
Right, well, we're going to bring Andrea up here, and Kelly, just because there was some question last meeting about the, so
Right.
at this point, I guess, what we need to do is, you want to go ahead and approve the one she did and list those three?
Yeah, mine would be the first three,
Yeah.
correct?
520.
All the way through 5.26?
520, 521, 526, and 532.
Okay.
No,
That's hers, 526, 521, and 520, sorry.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve those three policies.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now on to the other code
Well,
policy.
last month, Andrea had other places to be with athletics, so she could not be here, but I invited Andrea and Kelly here tonight just to talk through, I don't remember who mentioned about the need for this, so I know that Andrea did a lot of research. Could you come on up? I just wanted you to hear just what's going on in surrounding districts. She talked to a lot of schools, and these dovetail with each other with the extracurricular drug testing piece, and then the extracurricular activity code. So I thought you might
So
share
you
the
talked,
rationale.
you talked last board meeting about the gray areas that we found with the testing policy, and one of them was when a kid hits that last and final straw, when do they get can they come back? Are they completely done? There's just a lot of grayness, I feel like, in the policy. So that was kind of what we tried to clean up in there, and then I believe there was a question on, like, why do we test? Some schools don't test. So the Wednesday after the board meeting, I created a Google form and I sent it out to every athletic director in the state of Indiana. My responses that I got back, I only got 47 back. It was a busy time. Spring is busy for us, and with the weather, it was kind of hard. So seeing something like that, they probably thought, I don't have time to do that. But of the 47 responses, 5 of the schools said no, they do not do drug testing. Of those 5 schools, I thought it was interesting, Richmond and Anderson were 2 very large 4A schools. Wapahani is also one that doesn't. A school that was not part of this Google form, I talked to Silver Creek when we were down there on Thursday for girls softball regionals. And the AD said, well, I didn't have a chance to fill out your form, but I'm really interested in what results you get because we're fighting drug testing policies at school too. He said, we don't do it now. COVID stopped it. Because their biggest issue was during COVID, they would have the company come in and test. The kids that got drawn, half of them weren't there. So then they paid that company to sit there for those names, and it just became a big issue. So that was a couple of responses. COVID kind of stopped it. A lot of them it was funding. It's about, for us, it's $42 a test. So every month it's $450 because then I have to pay $30 for them to come and sit. And if I have a kid that can't use the restroom, it costs an additional $30 for them to wait a half an hour. So they call it shy bladder fee. So we did get some funding from the Drug Coalition last year. Mr. Havlicek fought that every Friday to the Friday of the month to the Drug Coalition meetings. We did get money to help us last year, but this year we got nothing. So it all came out of athletics. I do feel like there is a need for the policy. If you look at the stats of our county with drug-related issues, and I mean, we just had, 3 arrests this morning. I think it's a need. I think we need to educate our kids, and usually that's what happens when they do come up with a positive. They're required to take an in-depth class through the school that is free. It's about a 3-hour class. It basically just teaches them the harms of drugs and vaping and things like that. And that's one of the things that they have to do to be able to come back. If they can't do it through the school or don't want to, they can seek outside counseling that will also do that and just kind of provide us with that certificate. So part of it is just to kind of educate them, and usually once and that's it. We have had a couple of repeat offenders, and that gets a little bit deeper. But As far as when things are tested, the schools are all over the place. Some are once a month. I have some that do it once a season, so fall, winter, spring. One of them said once a year. A couple of them went weekly, 8 to 10 kids a week. Some of their fees were $25. That kind of differed. I just kind of asked them to tell me some other things that I needed to know. Sounds like a lot of them use the same company that we do. It's called ITI out of Indianapolis. Basically, we tell them how many athletes we currently have. They send us random numbers. We match that up to numbers in final forms, and that's how we find the kiddos. So we have no clue who we're getting. We've had some kids that I saw 3 months in a row because every week their numbers change because of the number of physicals that come in. So I'm open to any questions you may have about how we do it, what we do, what it looks like, benefits, cons, yeah.
Without naming schools, did you hear back from all of our conference schools?
I had 1, 2, let's see, Franklin County, Greensburg were 2 of our conference. I heard from Northern Lakes, North Central, the Mid-Southern, Mid-State, Sagamore, Independent, Great South Shore, GSSC, the Tri-Eastern, Ohio River Valley, Hoosier North. So pretty much every conference was almost in or gave them feedback from this one. So, and I give them their enrollment. So you have some enrollments of, 17, 20, all the way down to schools at 266 kids. So,
How often do you do it?
Once a month. I did set a date. It was the 3rd Thursday of every month, but the kids figured that out. So the issue we're having now is kids are buying urine from other kids on the 3rd Thursday of every month. So that's a new thing that we have. So next year it will be completely random, different days, different weeks. That was the thing that we caught on to at the end of the year. But you can't prove it, so it's hard to have.
I would be curious to know how many kids have participated in athletics or extracurriculars. If they have been using drugs, if they say, oh, I might be tested, so I'm not going to use drugs. My guess is not many.
I don't know.
I mean, I think that, I don't know, was it Ryan or? Yeah. Who mentioned that. My concern would be much more with students that would be using during the school day. That, to me, would be a concern if a kid came up and, obviously was using during the school day, and there's no way to know when you test, obviously, when they used or whatever. Is it hair follicle or is it
It's
urine?
urine
Oh, it's
now.
just urine.
So we bring our company, it used to be spit, saliva.
yeah.
That company retired, and so we had to go back to
May
the
not be as accurate
company.
either. I don't know if
I don't
it's as
think so.
accurate.
I don't think
Yeah.
the spit test was, because they couldn't have anything in their mouth for 20 minutes ahead of time, and then you sent it off, and I had to do it in my office with, usually Katrina would come in and sit while I did that. So I'm glad I'm out of the equation at this point. It's more of the company doing it.
But you can't, so does somebody accompany the student into the bathroom?
No.
Right.
They go in, they wash the toilet, they tape the sinks, and they put a blue dye in the toilet, so that way the kids can't dip it in the toilet to come out. And then when the kids are finished, they're not allowed to wash their hands. They have to come out and put hand sanitizer on, and then when they're finished, they can go back in and wash their hands once their sample has been given.
Interesting. Okay.
So, but no one followed. And I think that was in the old policy, is that an adult followed them into the restroom. I think that was something that we took out. Just tried to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
There's not procedures that would prevent them from using a secondary urinary source?
So I asked them that question because I did have a kid in question that was doing that. And they said as long as the temperature range was between 90 and 100, it was fine. So if a kid came in first thing in the morning and they hid it somewhere, then as long as it tested between 90 and 100, it was fine. So there are a lot of holes in it, but
How much do we spend on drug testing total?
I spend $450 a month, August through April. I don't test in May because it's too busy. So about, $4,500 a year.
Well, this
And
is just
I
piqued my
did-
curiosity.
yeah.
Now I'm curious about the schools that don't do it and what their reasoning was,
Well, here's
those are some
one,
big
so one of
schools.
the no's, Anderson's no, well, they just said we used to random testing on the groups listed, but the corporation cut the program out due to costs.
Oh, well, they're big. Bigger.
Richmond didn't give me a reason.
I would say that it's what Scott and I mentioned last time. Your student handbooks are gonna catch kids that are vaping at school, and they're probably utilizing the student handbook as a way to filter out those athletes. Because if it's an athlete that is in a violation of the student handbook code, it's gonna go to Andrea. So I would assume they're using their student handbooks because we have all that in there in the handbooks.
Oh.
They're just not randomly picking people.
This
They're
one,
waiting
yeah,
for
this
them
one
to-
says that they do it like administrative uses, where if a kid is suspected.
Right,
You can-
right.
If we get that from the high school perspective, then as the high school administration, they have the right to do that if they have reasonable cause. So they're probably just utilizing the way they have their student handbook.
So the positives are from the randoms, or no?
Yeah, all the ones that I've had are
Yes.
the randoms.
And I think, was it Ryan, you mentioned it last meeting, but does the student handbook rule, do normal school policies address it enough? Or I think there was some question from somebody about that, maybe.
Yeah, that's how we got on the
And that's
handbook
probably
conversation.
how,
Well, I know that I asked the other question if they tested extracurricular clubs as well as student drivers. And the majority of the ones that tested did test clubs and drivers. I know we test band because we require the band to have a physical now, just because they work just as hard as our athletes do in the summer. So I told Levi that we should do that. So I had a couple band kids that are not athletes, but I had some band kids that got tested this year because they were in that draw. I know when I was a kid here and you signed up in the 80s, or not 80s, 90s, sorry, I went in the 80s. You got a free t-shirt if you signed up to get randomly tested, but you had to as an athlete, you had to as a driver, and you had to if you were in any of the clubs here. I don't know who paid for it, but, so.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Ryan?
Well, I mean, I shared my concerns last time, and my concerns were completely different than, my concern is for those kids who test positive and now they've lost their sport, and it be the only thing that's positive in their life, and now nothing's positive in their life. That's the part that I was concerned about. Some of these kids, you can send them to a class, but if they see this every day at home, that class probably isn't going to mean a whole lot to them, and I just hate to take away, I just hate it for some of these kids that that's all they have.
And I think the only thing, to answer your question there, they don't get the whole thing taken away. If they're on strike 4 at this point, then it's taken away, and at that point, there is something, I think, bigger going on. But, the first offense is 25%, and if they choose to retest, it's 15, but they're still practicing, they're still traveling. The only thing is they just can't dress and play.
But even for the kids that know that there's testing, so they don't go out for sports.
I can't answer if there's kids that do that, I don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just concerns.
Sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that, we make a lot of exceptions for our students who have challenges, poverty, families with, trauma, and so one question I would have is, when or is there, and sorry, I haven't read it as closely again as I need to, is there any recommendation for counseling?
The first time.
The first time?
Yeah, the very first time that they test positive.
Do they have to go, or it's just recommended?
They're, based on the policy, how it was written before, they have to go.
Okay. And do
So
they
that's
get
part of them
an
being able to
assessment?
come back.
No assessment?
No,
No,
it's
we
just
don't
they
get
take a class, or they'll go to,
Or they can go to therapy?
or they can
or
go
counseling?
somewhere else, yeah, if their parents chooses to take them outside the school, yeah.
Okay.
We don't receive anything back typically.
I just get a piece
Just
of
like a
paper that says that they were
certification.
there,
they
yeah.
receive
Yeah.
they obtain counseling and a chemical assessment by an agency approved by the school.
Okay, so they do get a chemical?
Yeah, that's on the second page under first offense.
Okay,
Last sentence.
instead of that class, or that 3-hour class?
Do we do anything like if we're getting special requests where parents want their kids to be tested?
They can, but we make the parents pay for that. Any kind of requests that come in, parents have to pay. If a kid chooses to come back early, with the early reinstatement, it's the next 3 months they get tested, the parents have to pay that $42 a piece. I know Kelly had a couple of kiddos this year that they wanted tested, and so when we told the parent, you can either go to CVS and buy your own at-home test, or we can test you for $42, a lot of them chose to go to CVS and do it that way, so they could do it at home.
And they can go in the bathroom with them.
Exactly, they can.
And what are you testing for all?
It's a
Not
10
alcohol,
panel,
I
so
know.
it does like your biggest ones, your PCP, oxy, nicotine,
What are you catching the most of?
nicotine.
Oh, really? That's the number one? Oh, wow.
And you can tell
Oh,
when
I'm
they,
surprised.
you can tell how much by the number of milligrams that
Yeah.
they have in their system. So you can tell kids that have been doing it daily or hit it before they came in and then came in and got tested. And then you can see, over time, you can see the ones that have dropped as well, if they're a repeated tester, so.
And do you get other drugs? I mean, do you get other, do you
I
get
had one,
drugs?
I had one this year.
Just one?
Yeah, I had one THC pop up. The parent was
I'm
aware.
kind of surprised.
Yeah, the parent was aware when the phone call went out to the
Yeah.
parent. And then we get a lot, I mean, there's a lot of kids that are on ADHD medicine, so Vyvanse comes up on it.
Yeah.
And so if something like that comes
Obviously,
up,
yeah.
we make that phone call, parents confirm the script and how much, and
Yeah.
that usually pans out.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of those that pop up as well, so.
Wow.
Just a lot, I mean, there's just a lot to
The
it.
vaping, I mean, and I bet that's, well, I don't know, I don't know what it was 5-6 years ago before vaping was popular, 10 years ago, whenever vaping came around, if it was mostly nicotine that was being caught, but that's interesting. I don't have any other questions.
I mean, my biggest proposal with the policy was just to kind of clean up what we already had. So it's the policy that's already been in place and we've been using. I was just trying to make it more friendly by adding that chart so you can actually see, because there's a lot of kids that question, like, how many games is that? Well, now you can see it 15% is 8 games or 5 games or whatever, just for them to see that. And then we added the 4th offense. We gave them another shot, especially if you have a kid that gets hit maybe in middle school, which I've not gotten down to the middle school to drug test now that we're doing urine. That's something I'll have to work out at some point. But it just kind of makes it a little bit more black and white, I think, and takes out some of the gray. That's kind of what my proposal was for this. So if you choose that you don't want the policy, I don't know what that looks like and how you get rid of those, but I was just kind of showing you what we've worked on to clean up, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Andrea, based on that one incident, I served on the committee second semester.
Yeah.
I thought that's where we really knew that we had some gray areas that we had to deal with.
Yeah, and it was, if I remember, it was because when that said student tested, there wasn't like an early reinstatement after you had already had your second offense. And then they thought that after they served that, then it would kind of like wipe everything
Right.
out.
It
So it
wasn't
kind of, there's a couple bulleted and underlined points in the policy that kind of helps spell that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was tough. That was a tough one. That was my first one as well.
Andrea?
Yeah.
I have some concerns about middle school kids because when they come in, they're so incredibly young and that's such a very difficult time for them. And I have real issues because I've been around middle school kids all my career that a mistake that you could make in 7th grade could mess you up when you're in high school.
Sure.
And I understand the need for having some more structures on them and the like, but I think to Ryan's point about the kids that really need the stuff, 13 and 14-year-olds make bad decisions and they could be in a family situation that they really have no control over. And you get to high school and you get a little bit more control over your environment, but these 13 and 14-year-olds do not. I understand and I really like the fact that the middle school and the high school athletics are all working together and that part of it's working very well. But I really had some issues with the consequences for the actions of of the middle school kids just being frankly stupid and getting caught up in things and having the consequences never go away.
Well, two parts of that, and the first part is, we haven't tested at the middle school, but one of the students in the said hearing that we had got caught in middle school.
Okay.
Vaping, and so that's kind of how that offense carried over to high
Okay.
school. So it wasn't drug tested, I believe that they caught that said student doing
Okay.
something in the bathroom.
Okay.
And then the second part of that, that's kind of why we added that fourth offense, because if you did do something in middle school that you kind of messed up, that would have only given you 2 shots in high school, and now you're technically getting, or 1 shot in high school, and then it's kind of over. So we kind of added that to kind of add that flexibility. But yeah, that's the only case that we've had. I've not tested, and I don't know what Mr. Duncan did when he was here, if he went down to the middle school and tested or not, but, yeah.
Oh, another question. So it is all randomized, so if somebody had a 4th violation, their name just keeps coming up, or no?
Well, that's where the whole gray area came in. So the said student that we had an issue with tested positive. Well, then, to come back early, the student signed off that they wanted to try to come back. Instead of missing 25% of their season, they wanted to miss 15. Well, that student tested positive the second time. And so that
Randomly, or?
no, they have to test the next
agree?
3 months. To come back early, you have to sign and say you want to test the next 3.
Okay.
Well, that student tested the second time and came up positive. So technically, that's in the new writing, that's now the second offense,
Okay.
where it wasn't in there before as being the second offense. And then that student had to be tested again the next month because of that. So that's kind of where that came
But
about.
otherwise, for a 3rd and 4th violation, it would just have to be the luck of the draw.
Could be,
random.
and like I said, we've had some kids I had one kid that got tested 3 times this year. Because our numbers are always changing, because every season more physicals are coming in, so we get our numbers from Final Forms, which is where they turn their physicals in and sign to say that they can participate. We convert it into an Excel sheet and everybody gets a number. And then when the company gives us a number, we match it up that way. So,
And a lot of kids never get drawn their whole high school career.
correct.
Yeah.
I had a couple kids that were seniors this year that have never been tested ever, and then I had one poor kid that got tested 3 times.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for taking the time, not just to
Absolutely.
work on that, but to go over that with all of us.
yeah, absolutely, thank you. Anybody else have
Clear.
questions? All right, thanks.
Thanks, Andrea. Are there any questions about this? Are we ready to seek a motion then? I appreciate the work with this. Mark has sat in on these, and that was the most gray area, because you had a kid who was in that probationary period with mandatory testing get deemed again. So does that count as another offense, or does that just not allow you to be reinstated early? That was the big piece. And it's tough, I mean.
Well, I mean, I would also wonder, but I'm guessing there was time and the numbers were looked at in terms of the amount in their system, like.
It's
if
decreasing.
It would be decreasing, then I don't know if that would be a second offense.
And that's kind of where we, again, that one situation we had, that was part of what the board ruled, because a kid can appeal at any point.
Yeah.
Like if they get tested that first time, they are told, I highlight the policy and say, you can appeal at any point. And most kids don't, because it's a big process, and it could even take longer than them sitting out 2 or 3 games. But this kid did appeal, and in that sense, then that's kind of where the appeal board came up with the thing, well, the next time we test, it has to show it's lower. It doesn't have to be
Right.
0, because we
Right.
know it's not gonna be 0.
Right.
But it has to come back showing that you have tried to cut it down.
Yeah.
Yep.
The only thing I don't like about the policy is the 365 days, only because people can change, I believe, and, then we're penalizing them for an entire year after, when they might go to drug and alcohol therapy, they may do other work, they might have had an epiphany and realized, man, I really messed up, and they're then penalized for an entire year. That isn't my favorite part of that policy. The other parts I can certainly live with, but,
It's a
And Leslie, that was a
nasty
change.
business. It really is.
That was a change, because that used to be the 3rd offense, it used to be permanent. We added the 365 to kind of say, well, yeah, I'm a sophomore, I messed up, I may not get to compete my junior year,
Well, that's-
but I can come back my senior year kind of thing. So that is an addition, is not making the 3rd one the final one, we gave them like 1 more shot, but
yeah.
But that's, like I said, that's flexible, that's just kind of what a lot of other schools do.
Okay. All right, now I'm seeking a motion for 5.32 and 5.33.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark, a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy, any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, discussion item, elementary CMS, CHS, WCC bus ridership guidelines, bus regulations, and the code of conduct. Ms. Corsaro.
All of the handbooks were in your board packet. Again, we're a little behind because we needed to make sure we had the 520 and all of those approved prior to changing the handbook. So the majority of the handbook language that has changed is to make sure that it is in line with the new policies that you adopted today, so that when you review them, you will see that new language is in there. Another piece that you'll see in all of the books, again, the state is trying to help schools support kids getting back to school after COVID. We have a real attendance issue across the board, K-12. The state is requiring schools to have truancy plans and attendance plans, and so you will see some of those changes reflected in each of their books as well. And then again, it's just changing language to make it more user-friendly. And kudos to our administrators, are doing a really good job working collaboratively K-12 to make sure that the books are easy for parents to understand. A lot of time, policy and the legal things that the state requires can be very cumbersome when you put them in a book, and it makes it very difficult for our parents to understand it. So administrators are working across the board so that all the books are in line with each other, so that if they have kids at multiple schools, there is some consistency with those discipline codes and those attendance codes. So you'll see that as you review the books. Michelle has also reviewed the books and is okay with the changes. So I'll be bringing these back next month for your approval, but this is just for you to read, and if you have any items that you want to discuss, feel free to do so. And also, if you have anything afterwards that you want me to bring back from you to look at for the changes that we've made, feel free to ask for that as well.
Are we getting any more, with the legislation that passed to relate it, or the concern/interest by the legislature about truancy, are we getting anywhere with our prosecutors?
I know, and Damon's here, Damon works with the middle school and our prosecutor's office very closely, and I think, and Damon, feel free to chime in if you want to. He's like, no. We are getting a little bit more support at the elementary level than we are high school level. So Damon spent a lot of time working with elementary administrators and helping get the correct paperwork to the prosecutor's office for those elementary parents and students that are struggling to get to school. Unfortunately, by the time these students get to high school, these are bad habits that they've had since they were in preschool and kindergarten. So I feel that we are getting a little bit more support at the elementary level. Again, these are unfunded mandates, things coming from the state, and again, it takes a lot of people to make it happen. Damon spends a tremendous amount of time outside of his job duties at CHS making this happen for elementary, so we really appreciate that. Again, it is a problem that our community, I think you see it in the workforce, I think you see it in our families of poverty, so it is something that we're not definitely going to fix overnight, but I think the prosecutor's office is at least open to exploring some of these younger children and trying to break some of those habits before they get into high school. Unfortunately, when they're in high school and they're driving, it's really difficult for CHS administration to get parents involved, because parents will say, well, when you figure it out, let me know. Because they're many adults and they're raising themselves mostly. So again, we are getting a little more support from the prosecutor's office, but it's still at that lower level. But we'll see as we put in these new policies, and hopefully some of the bad habits that kids, no fault of their own, COVID just created it. We allowed them to stay home and do work at home, and so it created some lazy habits for them. And I think the more inviting and engaging we can make our classrooms, the more our kids are gonna wanna come back to school. So it's twofold. We have to do our part as well.
I'd like to commend the rewriting of the policies, because those were not user-friendly at all. It was like trying to read the codified laws that the legislature
Exactly.
puts out, and that's not fun. I think they've done a really good job of putting the policies in language that parents and real people can understand without going through all the legalese, because the legalese got incredibly difficult, because you send it home with parents and says, yeah, we read it, they'd sign off, they read it. They didn't read it because it was really too complicated and too confusing. So I think that the new language in that is so much more user-friendly, something that people can actually understand when they read.
I agree, and Damon has worked with the administrators to make it more user-friendly, because he is the one that makes those phone calls to parents, and he gets their feedback of how they are maybe clear on certain things, so they've done a nice job.
They did a really good job.
Well, thank you. Any more questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Public comments, persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private. Seeing none. Superintendent's discussion group reports. Principal director reports.
Say thanks to our custodians and maintenance crew for doing lots of work this summer. Everybody's really busy in the building, so we've achieved it.
Last night, we had our spring sports awards, end of season sports awards. Levi DeGroat came away with Male Athlete of the Year, and Anaya Bennett was our Female Athlete of the Year. We had a successful season again. 4 of our 6 teams finished the year with a sectional title. We had quite a few kids go to regionals, and Anaya went back to state again this year, where she placed second in the 200 meter. She's not happy. I just met her in the parking lot before we came because she wasn't there, and she kind of hid those ribbons behind the first place ribbons from sectionals. But we had a pretty good successful spring, even with all the rain and all that, so thanks for bearing with us, and hopefully we can, if you go outside, you can see them all out there working now. Soccer, softball, and little kids' football conditioning is in the field house, so busy time.
Thank you. Director of Operations.
Green paper in front of you has a fund report. One thing I just want to point out, if you think, oh, how did we do that? If you go to the very, very bottom, it looks like we have $8 million more. Realize that $6 million of that just comes because now we have the bond. One of the bond issues is one of our funds, so it's a little bit distorted from the past, but we'll continue to be in good shape there.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent report.
I just want to recognize, we recently lost Midge Rose. She was a longtime educational assistant at Maplewood Elementary. She was the pulse of that building for many years. After we repurposed Maplewood and made it Little Spartan Preschool, she then continued as an instructional assistant, but served as St. Gabriel's, a student at St. Gabriel's. So she passed away. Her funeral was today. She was a wonderful woman, and I think everybody in Fayette County that knew her or had an experience with her, she touched their lives. So I want to make sure that she's recognized for her 30-plus years of service to Fayette County schools. Thank you.
I think the greatest compliment is the kids loved her.
Oh, everybody loved her. And she was.
She had the velvet hammer.
She did. That's a great way of saying it.
Yeah, and she was working at the end of school. She was at St. Gabe's the last day of school.
Yeah, she loved her job.
Superintendent report.
I have nothing, you know that.
Baloney.
Let's get my money in on this last one here. I think for me, this is my last school meeting. It's bittersweet. I appreciate Kate for the article in the paper, if you had a chance to read that. You know, and I shared it at graduation, leave the campsite better than when you found it. And I hope we are. I feel like we are. I look out here, I look at Mallory, leading Little Spartan Preschool. That's, I think, one of the biggest jewels in the crown of our district. The programming we have in place. A lot of the administrators here came on board with me. You know, we have a few hold it, but a lot did. And I'm very proud of the team, and I'm very proud of our staff. And, you know, I think about the backbone of our district. It's people like this. It's people like Jim Croucher. You know, it's our longtime bus drivers who get up every day at 5 in the morning, clean out those buses. I was talking to Carly Moore. She stopped by. She's a longtime driver, and Daryl still tries to rope her in sometimes. But, you know, she's talking about, I don't miss getting up at 5 o'clock and cleaning off my bus on those cold, snowy days and things. But we think about all the people who are behind the scenes, and I appreciate you mentioning the custodians. So we've just been blessed, and you think about all the teachers that have gone through our district and served our kids, and principals and support staff. So we have a lot of great people here, and I think they're our greatest asset, our people are, and I don't want you to ever forget that. You know, we tried to take care of them with pay. We still need to keep moving that. We thought moving to $14 an hour for our support staff was, hey, that's good. We have to keep moving. That's, you know, we have cash. We have money in the bank. I think I'm leaving with more money, and that may sound bad, but I think we've made cuts along the way where we needed to be able to have a healthy balance. The new guy or gal may come in and spin through that. You watch out, you know, put some brakes on once in a while. Randy will do that for you, I know, but we're in a good place. I think some challenges, and I talked to Leslie a little bit about this, some things if I were going to be here 5 more years, some things I see coming. Something will need to be done with the elementary configuration at some point. I can't say when, and you all may decide, none of you may be on the board at some point when that happens, and maybe way down the road, but with our declining enrollment, it's going to be a factor to sustain, especially if we hit a recession again. I think that's something, I always appreciate what Mark said. You know, we've got money in the bank now, but are we going to have it later? And you know, this board has followed the recommendations of myself and our team over the years, and we're in a good place. We have older buildings. We don't have a new building, really, other than the field house, you know, some various pieces, but those are things that are going to continue to need to be done, and I think you have the basis for that improvement. Gibraltar did a really nice job with the facility study. Keep using that, because I would say we'll probably want to jump in and do some more remodels once we roll off the CMS payments and the field house that's coming up in the next couple of years. And then the middle school is going to need more work, because those repairs are going to push 25 years. So it's a never-ending cycle. So I think, you know, our buildings are in great shape because of Daryl's team and the pride in our building custodians and our head custodians. I mean, I commend them for the pride they take in our buildings. So big factor, what do we do with declining enrollment? It also carries over with secondary. When we look at, it's not as easy as eliminating a math teacher at the high school, because that's a domino effect, or a science teacher. But when we drop down to 900 kids at the high school, we can't continue to staff at the same level we did. And so we have to look for creative ways to do adjunct work, or to work with other districts to share teachers. I think that's going to be the new norm, especially some of these smaller districts can't offer what we do. And so I don't want to see our kids ever miss out on those opportunities. And we have to find ways to keep our dual credit teachers, because I think that's a huge piece for us. I don't envy the board on figuring out what to do with our elementaries at some point. I don't have the answer right now, but we aren't seeing the families moving in, and our birth rates have dropped, and I think they're ticking up a little bit, and that may give us a push here with COVID, post-COVID numbers. But just preparing for that future, we don't know what it'll look like. But you know, those are some things. And then I think with our academic and emotional supports, we have to keep investing in those. Our challenges are growing more and more. I think any of our people working in our buildings every day, it seems like that mark in time was COVID. And since that time, the needs of our kids and adults, they've just exponentially grown. And so we can't cut those pieces short. And I appreciate the work with Megan and all of our administrators working with Kim and the team to provide those supports, and it's not enough. There's so many needs out there, so don't ever cut us short on those needs of supporting our kids, and be sure we're supporting our staff too. So I think we're in a good place as a district, and I'm very proud of what we've done. So wouldn't happen without the great people that work and make it happen every day, like Cindy.
Yeah, that's it for the good cause, Mr. Collins. This is for you, from the board. You know, the newspaper kind of took the thunder out of what I was going to say, 'cause everything was in the paper is what I was going to say, but you have done so much here, and, you know, the things you have done have not just been the, you know, the preschool building, the field house with the solar fields, saving us $500,000 every year and through attrition with, you know, downsizing some of our admin-heavy areas. You know, created district-wide curriculum maps that were aligned priority standards for K-12 and ELA and math, the Marzano high reliability school work, the EES, which I never know what they are, but bringing them in. You know, the field house was a double whammy because we also got to close in, and you've had a tremendous focus on safety, bringing resource officers in, developing that relationship with our sheriff's department, which has been critical. But I think while we can cite all that and the new administrators that you've brought on that have just brought so much wonderful energy and are a good fit with our administrators that have already been here, you've created relationships that did not exist before you were here. And I think for me personally, through, you know, rough times, you have always been there to listen and offer guidance. You have changed all of us, I believe.
Absolutely.
And, we are all the better for you being here. So wish you tremendous luck and success in this next venture. You're going to do a great job, I know. So thank you so much, really. Anybody else?
I agree with everything Leslie said. I think Scott and I probably agreed on things about 90% of the time. I'll take that average anytime. But Scott and I go back way before the board, but appreciate everything you've done for the corporation. And I'd like to mention the golf team, just because they won their Richmond sectional twice in a row. So I'm very proud of those boys.
Yeah, that was cool.
Scott, you're one of the hardest working individuals I've ever seen. I still marvel on how you got everything done in the time that you had, and I'm going to miss that. Miss phone calls. So.
Those big ideas.
COVID about did us in.
Just a piece of advice, stay off ladders.
Yeah, there was a period of
Yeah,
time.
that
He was out and then you were out, like the two of you were out.
Stay off ladders. They have not
Mine
been
was not a
kind.
ladder.
They have not been kind.
Well, when this was first announced, I said in a public meeting, and that's all I really have to say, and I'll just repeat that. I think you're a hell of a guy. Really do.
Well, it is his last meeting, so he has to go out with the same
Can't change it
tradition.
now.
Got to keep it
Does he want
going.
to do it?
No, it's, do your job, gentlemen.
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn this fabulous meeting.
And there's a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ryan. All those in favor signify by raising your hand, opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. And there's